Hi there and welcome to Strings to Your Bow, the podcast where we talk to people with interesting stories and careers. I'm Chloe, small business enthusiast and proud owner of Andiamo Business Assistance. And today I'm chatting with Sarah Barr-Young, who's a well-known divorce lawyer in the Harrogate area. Sarah works at a family law firm called Jones Myers and looks after their Harrogate office, helping people when their relationships break down. Her work often involves sorting out money, houses, pensions and businesses, and she gives clear, honest advice that's easy to understand. Sarah is also trained in working with tricky financial cases and private children law and cares about explaining the law in a very simple way. She's also a massive advocate and supports young lawyers starting out in their own careers. So let's dive into the conversation and hear more about her journey. Thanks for joining me, Sarah. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello, Chloe. First of all, thank you very much for having me. I've watched quite a few of these podcasts and I love them. They're great. The questions that you ask people are really insightful. So I'm really hoping I can do you justice actually today. What would you like to start with? I'm sorry, I missed the first question.
You just tell me a little bit about yourself. So just to give a little bit of context, we met at a networking event a couple of weeks ago in Ilkley, didn't we? And I think we sparked straight away. And one of the things I really liked about you was almost your introductory gambit, which was basically people tend to shy away from me when I tell them what I do for a living.
Indeed, yes. People get very worried that they're going to catch a divorce.
Yes.
Somehow.
Yeah.
You go to a party and you're the most popular person in the room or the person nobody wants to be seen talking to.
Depending on the time of year.
Yes, I've over the years I've made my peace with it. It's a really interesting area of law. I love my job, I really do, but I understand that other people might find it hard to get their head round what I do on a day-to-day basis. It is fascinating. People in general fascinate me. How people react to massive changes in their lives, how people make decisions, how people treat each other. And let's face it, you know, in my day-to-day life, I come across people who don't treat the people closest to them very well.
Yeah.
And sometimes not with the respect that they promised to all those years ago. So it is fascinating if you're a people person. So I am really very lucky, and I have to say I'm pretty honoured really that people do come to me to help them sort things out.
Yeah. And how did you decide to go down the route, firstly of law, and then of specialising in divorce and those relationships?
Well, with law, it's in the family anyway.
Okay.
So it wasn't something that was alien to me. It was very accessible. I understood the highs and the lows of it. But it's a second career for me. I didn't go to law school until I was 28. I have a master's degree in something else. And I had a great time in my 20s pursuing that. So I've had fun and done a much more creative role. Worked in antiquarian books, antiques, and I travelled a lot with that as well. And then I did a stint in recruitment, which, my God, that teaches you a lot of things. And I just wanted something that was a bit more stable. I wanted to invest in doing something that I could be doing for a long time.
Yeah.
At that point, I didn't know that I wanted to be a divorce lawyer. I didn't sit down one day and think, my God, family law is definitely what I need to be doing. Absolutely not. I think my decision making was on the basis of what everybody goes into these things thinking about. Is I'm going to go and do more education. It's going to cost a lot of money. And how's that going to work for me later on? What's my future going to look like? What do I actually want my working life to look like? And I wanted some flexibility with my working life, moving up around the country if I wanted to. So law was a good, and I still think it is a very good qualification to have, because it does open a lot of doors. You don't just have to be a solicitor.
Yeah.
So I did the law, what's called a conversion course,
Okay.
because I already had a degree. And then I did something called a legal practice course, which is your LPC. So it's what was a very, very standard route into the law if you had a different degree, sorry, a degree in a different subject to start with. Lots
Yeah.
of people will go that way. Now, the routes into law are very varied, as it should be. It
Yeah.
was too narrow for a lot of
Yeah.
years. So I've had quite a traditional route, albeit starting later. And I knew very early on that I was a people person. So the very dry subjects, such as corporate, commercial, things that go with that, insolvency, commercial property, residential property. I mean, residential property is dealing with people, but not in the same way. I knew I'd be doing something that was what we call private client based.
Okay.
I was absolutely fascinated by criminal law,
Yeah.
but to be very blunt, I wasn't going to get up in the middle of the night and pop down to the police station and represent somebody or give them advice. It's just in terms of what you want at that point, and you're in your
Yeah.
late 20s, you know what you're prepared to do and what you're not prepared to do. Personal injury is an option. I think you need a lot of the same skills, but it's very harrowing.
Yeah.
And that wasn't for me. And I was lucky enough to get a training contract with a very well-known divorce lawyer up here in Harrogate, and she took me on, and I've never really looked back.
Okay.
It's fascinating what we do
Yeah.
every day.
I bet it is, because I mean, this could be a sweeping generalization, but I suspect divorces become more common than it used to, and actually is almost more accessible to people as well, which will mean that you come into a huge diversity of people and experiences and situations. And I assume, again, sweeping generalization, I assume that you have to be quite flexible in applying your skills and bringing your empathy and bringing your personality in those situations with a very clear target of where you're trying to get to for your client. Is that right?
Yes, you've got to be very open to the client as what's available to them.
Yeah.
So over the years I've been doing it, there've been lots of changes, and the majority of them have been good changes, especially for people trying to navigate the system themselves.
Yeah.
But it's still not possible to do it entirely yourself if you've got some bumps in the road. So, for example, the divorce procedure in itself, we now have something called no-fault divorce, which means you don't have to blame somebody else for the breakdown of the marriage,
Yeah.
which means the ethos behind that is that things get off on the right foot.
Yeah.
So we're not throwing stones to a certain degree right at the beginning. The media have obviously explained that very well to the general public, but I think what's been missing is that sometimes there is the opportunity still to have a bit of a fallout or a disagreement, because the divorce is just a mechanism to end the marriage. When you marry somebody, you enter into a financial relationship with them, and that's the bit that's quite tricky to close.
Yeah.
What we need to do is put you back into two separate entities in the eyes of the law, so financial entities really. And you need a financial settlement that's been literally signed off by a judge.
Yeah.
Okay. You need that independence from the person that you're married to. And that's the bit where that's the bit that can be tricky, because
Yeah.
people have very different ideas as to what that financial settlement could contain, and people have built a life together. That's the whole idea of marriage. It's a team sport. You build things together. You have kids, you have a home, you might have a family business. Most people take steps when they are married to build something for the benefit of not just themselves.
Yeah.
So if something goes wrong, or somebody doesn't want to be in that marriage anymore, we have to untangle it.
Yeah.
And that's where the law sometimes can be helpful on the one hand and unhelpful on the other. So quite often the way I explain it to people is that if you commit a crime and you are going to be sentenced to time in prison for that crime, you can look up in a law library what your sentence is probably going to be. Likewise, if you have an injury at work and you sustain a particular type of injury, you can look up what your compensation is going to be, and it's fairly accurate when you read those books.
Yeah.
It's not like that for this line of work.
Yeah.
Because the overriding driving force is producing a fair outcome, but everybody's family and everybody's finances are very slightly different. So, for example, if you were to divorce, your financial settlement would be different from a friend or a neighbour or a relative, because we're not all the same. We have some people might have debt, some people may have a load of money stashed away, some people might come into money during the process or had an inheritance. Some people might not like to share things. There's lots of different reasons as to why people don't have the same experience.
Yeah. And do you think, have you found that over time, the experiences you've had both in your previous career and then in retraining and in law, do you think you've developed a specific skill set as a result of those experiences? Because we all change as we age and our experiences affect us. And I can imagine that you are dealing with people at their best and at their worst, I suspect. So have you found that you've developed skills to help you cope and manage those situations a little bit easier?
I think so. I must stress that I'm still learning. Crikey, we never feel like we've nailed it.
No.
I think I'm a better listener, but I still have a long way to go.
Yeah.
I really do. I think I'm much more patient now.
Yeah.
And I've also learnt to pause. So things can get a little fiery sometimes in any disagreement, and it can sometimes feel a little bit chaotic, and sometimes just pausing, and you wouldn't believe the amount of situations or the solution that can come to you in that pause.
Yeah.
So just stopping and having a few minutes of quiet, and remembering that you're not there to solve the world, really helps. So that is a big thing that I've developed over the years. But as I say, I'm nowhere near, nailing it. There's a long way for me to go.
Yeah, but I think we're all like that, aren't we? I think it would be an unusual person that said, I'm exactly the same today as I was 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, because the experiences that we face on a daily basis are bound to affect us in some ways. And you would have to be very self-absorbed not to reflect on those experiences and think, could I have done that any better, or what have I learned from that, just as a natural human trait, really.
Absolutely. And I think I did benefit from coming to law a little bit later.
Yeah.
I enjoyed my 20s. I got to do something that I was really passionate about. And it's not a case of getting it out of your system, but by the time I was in front of clients and talking to them about the law, naturally I was older.
Yeah.
Which I think helped. It helped with things like resilience.
Yeah.
And it helped with interacting with people who are really struggling, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. And you mentioned that your training contract was with a well-regarded divorce lawyer in Harrogate who happened to be a woman. And when we've spoken before, you said you were really passionate about supporting young people coming up through the profession and mentoring young people and women specifically. Is there anything, when you're doing that mentoring, when you're working with people that are at the start of their careers, are there any skills or attributes that you sort of press upon them as being important and potentially undervalued in the business world that you think are really beneficial?
Well, I mean, nowadays the kids getting into the law schools, my golly, they are so bright. They're so talented. I've read some amazing CVs, and I feel kind of uh, slightly, I don't know, imposterish, I suppose, reading their CVs, thinking, my God, these are such amazing things. But when I've had chats with them and we've talked about how they want to present themselves and things like that, and then we've actually drilled down and looked at the CVs, there's normally something missing from their CV. And it's a very bizarre thing that I've noticed, but they're almost shy or almost embarrassed sometimes to put their holiday jobs on their
Oh,
CV. They're so under pressure to show their academic achievements,
yeah,
and there are lots, and there'll be other achievements. They might have done Duke of Edinburgh, or they might do some charitable work, or
yeah,
do a free legal advice clinic type thing with the uni. But when I've been hiring over the years, what I really look for is people that have done holiday jobs which involve working with the general public. So
yeah,
I want to know that someone's worked in a student bar. I want to
yeah,
know that someone's been waitressing throughout the summer in perhaps a tourist location, because we all know that that's pretty fraught stuff sometimes. You're
yeah,
dealing with people that sometimes will have a complaint and not be very happy, and you're used to thinking on your feet.
yeah.
Um, those are all vital skills for, I think, working in family law and working in law generally. And I think you shouldn't really feel embarrassed about that, because it's brilliant.
Yeah, of course it is. If you have anyone who's worked in a bar knows that you have to be very used to working long hours. You have to be dealing with difficult situations, negotiation, conflict resolution, handling complaints, all of those aspects that come into lots of different professions. You learn those when you are working in bars and working in restaurants and all the other holiday jobs and temporary jobs that we do as we're going through education and learning, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-mm.
Yeah. And do you think you've mentioned your listening skills and you've mentioned taking a breath sometimes and just taking a step back from the situation? How do you bring your personal values into your career and into your relationships with your clients as well?
Well, in terms of my, I suppose, personal values and my character generally, I've always been a bit of a goody two shoes. Um, in that I'm not a rule breaker.
Mm,
Um, and I'm also a very honest individual. And I think that feeds into um, being authentic at work.
yeah,
I think what people look for in any line of business, any client-facing role, is a sense of honesty. They need to be able to trust you. In my line of work, people can be going through a terrible time with a
yeah,
broken heart,
yeah,
and they're faced with having to sell their home, and you have to find a way to communicate with somebody, and you have to put them at ease, and they have to trust you. They
yeah,
have to know that you have their best interests at heart, and that you are delivering uh, advice founded on, backed up by years of experience, good knowledge, and that you have the time to listen to them.
yeah,
So I think you need to flex and bend. And I think you also need to really make peace with the fact you're not for everybody.
yeah,
And I think that's something in later years that I've been much more comfortable with. And that's saying, you know, I would really appreciate it if you go and get a second opinion, or you are entitled to a second opinion. Or what I sometimes, very frequently, actually, when I meet new people, I will say, this is a really odd area of law. I'm very aware that all divorce lawyers explain it in a very different way. And the way I explain it might not necessarily resonate with you, but go and do the beauty parade, go and see lots of lawyers, have those initial free appointments, and see who you really gel with. it may well be some people only need what's known as a light touch. They only need a little bit of support from a lawyer, and perhaps we come in at the end. Do we do the drafting of the paperwork that's needed to get the financial order over the line, or they may need a lot more support because their access to money has been cut off, or their access to their children or their family home has been cut off, or somebody is what we call dissipating assets, so moving money beyond someone's reach.
Yeah.
So it's the whole spectrum that's out there.
Yeah. And I think you're right. I completely agree. As you get older, you do realise that you won't like everyone and not everyone will like you. And as long as you are being authentic in your relationships with people, everyone has a choice, and you should encourage them to make that choice. But in doing so, you'll find your own tribe, you'll find your tribe of people. But trying to please everyone all of the time basically means that you're not being true to yourself, and you're not going to please people. It's just self-perpetuating, isn't it?
Yes, I think early days, when I was advising, so for example, if I was representing a husband and he may be self-made businessman, and communication could be quite difficult because in his environment, he called all the shots and he knew everything because it's his business, quite rightly so. But then his personal life came into changed, and he needed support in an area that he had A, no control over, and B, needed legal advice. God forbid he had to pay for the advice as well, and then take it from me as a woman. Now things are different now.
Yeah.
It's not so black and white, women struggling to be heard sometimes. And I'm glad things aren't quite like that. But I have in the past, once I remember an occasion putting my hand up saying, I'm really struggling to deal with this man. And I think that he would respond better to a male lawyer. That's not something that would happen, has happened in recent years. But it took a lot for me to put my hand up and say, actually, I'm not the best person for this lawyer, for this client.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's right. I think regardless of gender, you're not going to be right for every customer, and also every customer's not going to be right for you, and that's entirely your prerogative as well. And it takes a lot of strength to recognise that, and I think that strength quite often comes from experience as well.
Yes, I think as I'm older, definitely much more confident in a lot of aspects of my life, both professionally and personally, and I love seeing that. And I think part of what I love doing as well in my job is seeing women and men, but it does tend to be women who are more free, who will talk about it more freely when they start to open their eyes and thrive, and they can see what life is going to be like post-divorce. It can be a very grisly time for a lot of people. And then it's like watching people grow wings, and it's lovely. It really is lovely.
Yeah. Oh, that's so nice. That's really, really nice. I can't believe it, but we're actually on the last question. It is, I think it's quite a biggie. So looking back, is there anything that you wish you'd known earlier, either in your personal life or your professional life, that you think would have helped your business journey and your choices?
I think if I'd had more perspective,
Okay.
in terms of don't sweat small stuff.
Yeah.
And I know so many people say this sort of thing when you listen to podcasts, especially older professional women, and it really is true. When I look back, obviously we're recording this in the summer and it's exam season. My goddaughter's been doing exams, and I look back to how I would have approached my GCSEs, and I'd have had a sleepless night about a French test. Has doing well in a French test made any impact on what I do now? Absolutely not. But I would have got myself in knots about it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that other people were putting pressure on me. I put pressure on myself. So I think I have to be easier on myself. I've also learned an awful lot in my personal life. I've been divorced. So I think that has impacted a lot on how I deliver advice professionally. I have become much more It was a while ago now, but I know after that I became I was a lot more patient with people.
Yes.
I was a lot more understanding, and that's, I think, when I probably started to pause a bit more. And I wasn't afraid to show a bit of my character or personality. I think in those early years, you're so keen to show the world that you know the law, but actually, what your clients need to know is they need to know that you know you can do the job,
Yeah.
but that you can hear everything that they're saying to you, because what they're telling you are the bits that really matter. And then
Yeah.
you've got to go beyond that. You've got to drag out from them, if you can, or tease out of them somehow the other bits that perhaps may have more of a bearing than they realise
Yeah.
on how things are going to go. So yes, patience, much more patience now, much more patient now.
Brilliant. That's a great place to stop. We're going to stop there. Thank you. That brings us to the end of today's episode, and what an inspiring conversation it's been. A big thank you to Sarah for sharing her journey with such honesty and warmth. Sarah's belief in staying true to yourself, leading with empathy, and making the law easier to understand is not only refreshing, it's something we can all learn from, no matter our field. If you're thinking about your own career or how your personal story may shape your future, I hope this episode has given you some food for thought. We've got some amazing guests coming soon, each with their own story. If you've missed any episodes or want to catch up on more inspiring stories like Sarah's, head over to Andiamo Business Assistance YouTube channel and you'll find all the past episodes there. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.